Hey guys! Tonight we fall backward through time into a world of sweat-slick marble iron gates that groan open like the jaws of a beast and tens of thousands of eyes fixed on you as you step onto blood-soaked sand. There's a deep, slow drumbeat in your chest, part fear, part disbelief. Welcome to the Roman arena. You're not a tourist. You're not even a guest. You're tonight's main event. You can smell the tang of rusted iron, the sour breath of nervous men, and the faint but ever-present stench of what happened to the last guy in your sandals. And you're wearing sandals, well, what's left of them? The sun is punishing, the dust clings to your throat, and every instinct inside you is screaming that you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is where you are. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You don't walk into the Colosseum, you're shoved. Shackled to a line of other unfortunate souls, you shuffle forward in a slow metallic rhythm. Some of them whisper prayers. Some curse. One is quietly weeping. You just try to stay upright. The guards bark in Latin sharp, impatient syllables, and when someone trips, the response is swift, a boot, a yell, a splash of blood on the dust. Above you, tiers of marble and stone stretch higher than your eyes can follow. The arena looms like a hungry god. It isn't just architecture, it's intimidation carved into stone. Historians still argue whether the Colosseum could hold 50,000 or 80,000 people. You don't really care, all you know is that they're already here and they're loud. The crowd surges with a kind of chaotic glee, like children at a violent circus. The armor they gave you is more decoration than defense. The helmet cuts off your peripheral vision. The greaves rattle with each step. Your sword, if you can call it that, feels heavy in your unfamiliar hand. It was someone else's before you. You wonder if they're still alive. Probably not. You're guided through a tunnel that smells of urine and iron. Torchlight flickers casting wild shadows across the stone walls. One of the guards mutters a joke in Latin, something about fresh meat. Another laughs. You don't. At the end of the tunnel, daylight hits you like a slap. You stumble into the brightness, squinting. The roar that follows is overwhelming. It's not joy. It's hunger. The crowd isn't here to cheer, they're here to feast. Not with mouths, but with eyes, with bloodlust, with morbid curiosity. There are 3 other men being pushed out beside you. One of them has a scar so deep across his chest it puckers like dried fruit. Another looks barely 15. The last one meets your eyes. He doesn't blink. He looks like he gave up blinking last week. The announcer, probably some local politician trying to win favour, raises his arms. His robes are too clean for this place. His voice booms out, calling on Mars, the god of war, and promising a glorious afternoon of combat. You're not mentioned by name. None of you are. You're just contenders. Suddenly, the ground shifts. You glance down and realise it's not your imagination. Beneath your feet, hidden trapdoors creak open. From the darkness below, the sound of chains, growls, then claws on stone. You realise this isn't just a fight, it's a test. You're the bait, or maybe the warm-up act. There's a moment of stillness, then a trumpet sounds. Your body moves before your brain can protest. You sprint badly. Your muscles scream. You dodge left. Something snarls. The crowd erupts. You have no idea what's behind you, and honestly, you don't want to know. You don't think. You swing your weapon wildly. It hits nothing. Someone else screams a sharp, cut-off sound. You keep moving. Instinct over strategy. You crash into one of the other gladiators. He snarls and shoves you away. No allies here. Later, you'll learn that this was just a mock battle. A warm-up. None of it was meant to end in death, but no one told the tiger that. You last 8 minutes. You lose your sword. You fall once. You cut your hand. You don't die. When they finally blow the horn again, the gate opens like a lifeline. You stagger out, not sure if you're supposed to be proud or ashamed. A medic grabs your arm, checks your pulse, then moves on. You're not interesting enough to treat. That night, you sit in a stone cell nursing bruises and replaying every second of the fight. You can still hear the crowd. You can still smell the tiger. You can't stop shaking. And this was just day one. Bought like livestock. That's how this whole miserable journey started. Not recruited, not enlisted. You weren't invited to join some noble warrior's guild. You were purchased, dragged from whatever life you had before slapped onto a stone auction block and examined like a cow at market. They inspected your teeth, your muscles, your scars if you had any. Not out of concern, but because damage lowers value. The crowd of buyers, wealthy, oily men in togas and gold rings stood beneath shaded porticos sipping watered wine while deciding if your bones were worth investing in. Most of them weren't gladiators themselves. That would be far too messy. No, they were Lanistae gladiator trainers owners, middlemen in the human suffering business. You probably didn't understand most of what they said. Latin, Greek, maybe some North African dialects thrown in. All you heard was numbers barked out like prices for goats. One man pointed at you then to your legs. Another touched your shoulder, nodded at your back. You flinched when he pressed your ribs. He laughed. Strong lungs, he muttered. Sold. You didn't know it then, but you'd just been bought by the Ludus Magnus, one of the largest and most brutal gladiator schools in Rome. Some might say you got lucky. Historians still argue whether being sent to a big-name school meant a higher chance of survival or just a flashier, quicker death. You didn't care. All you knew was the chains got tighter. The paperwork didn't take long. Your name was scribbled onto a wooden tablet next to a bunch of numbers age, height, build, maybe a note about your teeth. That would be the last time your real name appeared anywhere official. From here on out, you'd be given something catchier, something the crowd could chant. But not yet. First, you had to survive intake. Transport to the school wasn't in a carriage. You were marched. Sandals biting your feet, wrists bound, and the Roman sun leaning in like a cruel god. The guard leading you stopped twice to relieve himself, once on a bush, once just in the road. You were not offered the same privilege. When the walls of the Ludus finally rose before you, they didn't look like a school. They looked like a prison. High stone iron bars, a single gate that creaked open with a groan too familiar. The smell hit you first, sweat dust, old blood, and the faint tang of vinegar. You weren't sure if that last part was for cleaning or wounds, possibly both. Inside, no one welcomed you. No headmaster, no handshake. A guard shoved you into a darkened room where 6 other men already sat, each with that same lost look. One of them had a broken nose. Another had a tattoo of a fish on his neck. No one spoke. Then came the branding. Not a metaphor. Actual branding. A hot iron pressed against your skin, usually on the thigh or upper arm, somewhere visible when you fought bare-chested. It marked you as property. Sometimes the mark was the initials of the Ludus, sometimes just a number. You screamed, Everyone does, even the ones who try not to. Later that night, lying on a straw mat that felt like it had never once been washed, you start to understand you're not just here to learn how to fight. You are the product, the entertainment, the meat. You belong to someone now, and that someone fully intends to turn you into profit. You think back to whatever you did to get here. Maybe you were a prisoner of war captured in a skirmish on some foreign field. Maybe you stole a loaf of bread from the wrong cart. Maybe you were sold by your own family to pay off a debt. It doesn't matter. Here your story is irrelevant. Your only identity is your usefulness. And it's not just you. The room around you holds men from everywhere. A tall man with reddish hair and freckles, probably from Britannia. A wiry, dark-skinned man who doesn't talk, only stares. A thick-set brute with broken knuckles who mutters in Greek. You're all now part of a brutal makeshift brotherhood, one forged not in trust, but in shared captivity. Later, a guard tosses in a bowl of something that might be food. You're too hungry to question it. It tastes like wet cardboard mixed with lentils. You eat it anyway. In the distance, you hear the sound of metal clashing. Someone's already training. Someone's already bleeding. You pull your knees to your chest and lie back on the straw mat, staring at the ceiling. If you can call that cracked, flickering stone a ceiling. You realize something important. You're not here to be saved. You're here to be sold again, piece by piece, bone by bone, on the sands of the arena. And nobody, not the crowd, not your Lannister, not even the gods, really cares what happens next. The next morning comes too soon and too loud. A trumpet blares just as your eyes finally adjust to the dark. You sit up, groggy limbs sore from yesterday's march and stomach already growling. No one speaks. There's no time. A guard appears at the cell door with a cudgel and a scowl. He doesn't unlock anything. He just growls, "Move. You move." Outside the training yard is a rectangle of packed dirt and old blood. In the centre stands a wooden post with slashes and gouges all over it, clearly a favourite punching bag. Around it, a few men are already warming up, stretching, swinging wooden swords, glaring. You recognise the red-haired one from last night. He's built like a tree trunk. You hope you won't be sparring with him. A man steps forward, wearing a leather breastplate and a crooked grin. This is your Doctor, the head trainer. His name doesn't matter. You won't be calling him anything but sir if you're smart. His job is to turn broken men into polished killers. If you live long enough to be polished. He barks orders, pointing at you and another unfortunate. A wooden sword is shoved into your hand. It's heavier than you thought, weighted on purpose to build muscle. Your opponent swings at you like he means it. You duck. Barely. The next hit catches you in the side and the world wobbles for a second. You taste dust. The Doctor nods. Again. This continues for hours. Welcome to the Ludus. Training here isn't about glory. It's not cinematic duels or heroic speeches. It's repetition. Painful, boring, endless repetition. You learn how to stand, how to strike, how to block, how to fall without breaking your neck. Again and again, miss a beat, and the Doctor corrects you with the flat of a stick or worse, a lash from a knotted rope. You train in teams rotating through opponents. Some know what they're doing, ex-legionaries turn slaves. Others are like you, confused, clumsy and terrified. Everyone sweats. Everyone bleeds. The sun climbs high, cooking the yard like a skillet. Your mouth dries. Your limbs shake. You want to stop, but you don't. Stopping is punished. Water is rationed. Rest is rare. The food, Still that same barley mash sometimes with a sliver of salted fish if someone was feeling generous or making room for a new corpse. And the days don't vary much. Every morning the same trumpet, every night the same stone cell. Sometimes someone doesn't come back. No explanation. You learn not to ask. You just shuffle forward in line, take your sword and pray to whichever god is still listening. Historians still argue whether the ludus was meant to build strength or simply weed out the weak. Either way, it works. You're sore in places you didn't know you had. Your hands blister, your feet bleed, your shoulders ache constantly. And then there's the helmet. You're finally issued one after a week, iron hot under the sun, with a narrow eye slit and no padding. It stinks of sweat from the last guy who wore it. You put it on anyway. You have to. Even if it crushes your ears and echoes every heartbeat like a war drum. One man collapses during drills. The doctor kicks him once. When he doesn't get up, 2 guards drag him away. You don't see him again. Another man vomits during weapons drills. The vomit steams in the dust. No one stops. He's told to clean it with his tunic and keep swinging. Even the air feels like punishment, dry hot filled with the scent of iron and old bruises. But there's something worse than pain. It's the realization that no one's watching to help. There's no overseer making sure you're treated fairly. No inspector writing reports. The ludus is self-contained. Everything that happens here stays here. If you die, they just cross your name off the list and put someone new in your bunk. At night, when the gates slam shut and you lie flat on your back, muscles twitching from exhaustion, you hear whispers. Men talking in broken Latin about dreams, about families, about past lives. One man mutters something about drowning every night. Another talks to his dead brother in his sleep. You stay quiet. But your mind races. You start calculating odds. Maybe if you learn fast. Maybe if you fight smart. Maybe if you fake an injury. Maybe if you survive 10 matches, they'll let you go. You'll learn later that 10 is just a myth like mercy. Some schools had wooden dummies for training. Others used live prisoners for practice. You've seen both. You preferred the wood. You think of escape, you always do. But the walls are high, the guards are many, and you don't even know which direction leads out of Rome. You're a student here, that's what they call you. But there are no scrolls, no books, just broken bones, splintered shields, and endless dirt. And you're learning faster than you want to. Eventually, you learn the name of the man who owns you. Not because he tells you himself, he doesn't bother with that. You hear it whispered between beatings grumbled by guards and scrawled in chalk on a board you're not supposed to look at. His name is Gaius Publius Drusus. But to everyone here, he's just the Lannister. He doesn't live in the barracks, of course. He has a villa tucked behind the training yard, complete with marble columns and a shady garden where he sips wine while you practice how not to die. Occasionally, he watches training from a high balcony, a shadowy figure in fine linen robes. If you're lucky, he doesn't notice you. If you're unlucky, he smiles. That smile means you're profitable, and that means pain is coming. The Lannister is not a coach, he is not a mentor, he is not by any stretch your friend. He is your owner in every legal and social sense. Roman law is clear. Gladiators are property. You can be bought, sold, rented, or traded like furniture. You are not a man. You are a commodity. Some of the more philosophical types whisper about this at night. You're a tool, one of them says. A plough. A hammer. A dog with teeth. Then he laughs to himself and rolls over coughing. The Lannister doesn't care about your past. He doesn't care if you were once a soldier or a farmer. or the son of a senator fallen from grace. All that matters is whether you draw cheers or groans from the crowd, whether your fights sell bread and wine, whether your body looks good, bleeding. He keeps records how many matches you've survived, how many opponents you've killed, how many teeth you've lost. Yes, the teeth matter. Gaps make for better screams. Historians still argue whether some Lannistae treated their gladiators well as investments to be protected or merely as disposable performers. Evidence exists for both. Letters from wealthy trainers describe feeding their best fighters, figs and honey, to keep them strong. Others tell of men worked to death and dumped in unmarked pits when they failed to entertain. Your Lannister leans toward the second type. Once a week, he walks the yard during drills. Everyone straightens up, swings harder, sweats more. The guards follow him like jackals. Sometimes he stops and points. That man gets extra rations or a new helmet. Sometimes he points again. That man disappears the next morning. You are never told what earns the first kind of attention or the second. Occasionally visitors arrive. Rich patrons looking to buy a fighter for a private match, a festival or a party where someone's going to get stabbed for sport. You stand in a line cleaned up, oiled like livestock. Your Lannister does the talking. You're just muscle and scars. One visitor, an older man with gold rings on every finger, asks if you can scream on command. The Lannister smiles and gestures for you to demonstrate. You hesitate. The visitor raises an eyebrow. The Lannister's smile sharpens. You scream. It's not very convincing. The man loses interest and walks away. You don't get dinner that night. Your Lannister keeps you alive, but only just. Enough food to train, enough water to walk, enough rest to recover from the last beating so you can take the next one. That's it. If you break a bone, they might let it heal. If you lose an eye, they promote you as a tragic spectacle. If you die, well, you'll be replaced. He names you eventually. They always do. You don't get a say in it. Your old name is dead now, buried under sweat and dust, and someone else's idea of entertainment. Your new name, Crixus, maybe. Or the Boar. Or something Latin-sounding that rolls off the tongue when the crowd screams it. You want to hate the name, but part of you holds on to it, because it means you exist. It means you're real. It means in some twisted way you matter to someone, even if that someone only wants to sell tickets. You overhear two guards talking one evening. One of them jokes about how your Lannister bought a new shipment of helmets because the last batch kept splitting when heads got crushed. The other laughs. Guess the crowd liked it. That night when the torchlight flickers low and the snores of exhausted men echo off the stone, you dream of being back on that auction block. You dream of walking away, of not being chosen, of slipping through the cracks in history and becoming no one. But then you wake up, and the smell of vinegar, sweat and blood reminds you Gaius Publius Drusus owns your body, your name, your voice. And tomorrow he's expecting a better scream. You never get used to the drills. Even after weeks in the ludus, they still start too early, last too long, and end with someone limping. The courtyard is always the same, that oppressive sun, the same warped training dummies, and the dust that coats your skin like a second layer of punishment. But today something's different. The Doctore isn't holding a wooden staff. He's holding a whip. The sessions start normally, if normal, means being barked at like a mule and shoved into formation with men you barely know. You stretch, you swing, you repeat the same defensive stance again until your knees buckle. But the moment someone drops their guard, the whip cracks. It doesn't draw blood, not yet. But the message is clear discipline by pain is officially part of the curriculum now. The doctore paces like a predator, his boots kicking up tiny clouds with each step. He doesn't scream. He doesn't need to. Every twitch of his arm carries the threat of that sharp snap behind it. You hold your stance tighter, your arms tremble, your grip burns. But you do not drop the sword. Behind you, someone grunts in pain. The whip has found its mark. No one turns to look. The training becomes a blur. You don't think anymore. You react. Block thrust, pivot repeat. You stop listening to the Latin commands, you start feeling them. Your muscles anticipate before your mind catches up. But that doesn't mean you're safe, because sometimes the punishment isn't about messing up. Sometimes it's just because the doctor is having a bad day. One of the guards bet against him in a dice game last night. You know this because the guard has a black eye, and now everyone's getting punished for it. Gladiator logic. You learn tricks to survive. Keep your elbows tucked. Never look the doctore in the eye. If you're about to collapse, fake a stumble, it earns a glare instead of a strike. And above all, don't be the best or the worst. The worst gets punished. The best gets noticed. And being noticed is dangerous. Historians still argue whether the intensity of gladiator training was more rigorous than legionary boot camp. Some argue it had to be since the stakes were death, and not just defeat. Others say it was more theatrical, focused on showmanship rather than skill. You think it's both. One part soldier, one part circus act. All parts miserable. After drills, you're sent to the obstacle course. It's a mess of low walls, ditches, swinging sandbags, and balance beams that seem designed to break ankles. You run it over and over. Fall once you get up. Fall twice, you get shouted at. Fall 3 times, you might get replaced. The idea isn't just to make you agile, it's to make you durable. The crowd loves a fighter who takes a beating and keeps moving. They don't want flawless warriors, they want drama. Your legs cramp, your arms shake, your lips are cracked from thirst, and still the whistle blows again. Back in line. Sparring time. This time they hand you a scutum, a heavy rectangular shield, and a new weapon, a gladius, dulled for practice, but still deadly if you're clumsy. Your opponent is a veteran. You can tell by the way he moves, calm, coiled, precise. He doesn't grin. He doesn't blink. You raise your shield and hope for mercy. There's none. He strikes fast, jabbing low, then spinning the shield into your ribs with practiced cruelty. You grunt. You block. You try to return the blow, but he's already 2 steps ahead. The doctore yells at you to stand like a man. You didn't know there was another option. You take a hit to the shoulder that nearly knocks you down. Another cracks against your thigh. The third misses your face by a hair. And then for one tiny moment you get through. A glancing blow across his side. It doesn't hurt him, but it pauses him. He nods. You don't know if it's respect or permission to breathe. Then it's over. You collapse in the dust, ribs aching, knees raw. The doctore grunts something that might be approval. The veteran offers no words, just walks away already forgetting your name. Later back in the cell, someone tosses you a strip of cloth for your bruises. You nod your thanks. No words exchanged, no need. Everyone here speaks the language of survival now. One of the younger recruits tries to cheer the group with a joke about the doctor's crooked nose. It earns a few tired chuckles. You try to smile, but your lip is too swollen. You lie back on your mat watching a beetle crawl across the wall. You wonder if he's a prisoner too. Maybe tomorrow you'll give him a name. But not tonight. Tonight, every bone in your body aches. Every muscle burns. You don't even remember what comfort felt like. You close your eyes and dream of wooden swords and that whip's sharp crack. Food arrives before dawn. You know this not because you're awake, but because the clatter of the metal bowl jolts you from a dream where you were running and somehow winning. You sit up slowly. Your body protests with a symphony of groans, cracks and aches like an old wooden ship creaking in a storm. Your knees feel like someone replaced the joints with gravel. Your shoulders. Forget lifting your arms above your head today. The bowl contains the usual pulse, a mash of barley, a few sad-looking lentils, and a vague scent of old onion. It's thick, greyish and cold. You eat it anyway. You always do. Not because it tastes good, it doesn't, but because you've learned that training on an empty stomach is a special kind of suffering. So you scrape the bottom of the bowl with your fingers, lick them clean, and let the bland paste settle in your gut like a stone. They call it the gladiator diet. Historians know it well. High in carbohydrates to build mass, low in fat, and definitely low in joy. Some scrolls even mention that gladiators were nicknamed Hordearii, the barley men. Romantic rite, like calling modern fighters the porridge warriors. Makes you feel heroic. But the strange part is, it works. Slowly under the grime and bruises, your body begins to shift. Your arms thicken, your legs feel sturdier. You hate it, but the pulse does its job. Of course, that's not the only thing you're expected to consume. One day after drills, they lead you into a shaded side room. There's a wooden table with a pitcher of murky liquid and a stack of small clay cups. The doctore grunts, points and walks out. You sniff the cup. Smells like ashes and vinegar had a child. Tastes worse. Someone near you whispers, "Bone ash." You blink. Turns out it's a common practice calcium from charred bones mixed into vinegar thought to strengthen the bones and prevent fractures. Fringe, yes. Weird, definitely. But you drink it, because the last guy who refused now walks with a limp, and the next fight might be his last. That night, lying in the same sweat-drenched mat, your stomach churns from the ash drink. You wonder whose bones they were. Hopefully not the guy who used to wear your helmet. The next day, the food is slightly different, a slice of hard cheese. Maybe the Lannister is entertaining a senator. Maybe the cook made a mistake. Either way, it feels like a feast. You chew slowly, savouring every salty bite. Even mold doesn't seem worth complaining about anymore. You start to notice strange things about the food. It's always portioned exactly. No second helpings. No variation unless it's someone's death day. Then, and only then, do you sometimes get a dried fig or, on rare occasions, a small cut of meat. To ça say so. But the meat is suspect. Once a veteran named Otho muttered that the meat came from the arena itself. You didn't ask what that meant. You didn't want to know. Historians still debate the exact makeup of the gladiatorial diet. Some believe it was carefully planned for maximum performance. Others argue it was just the cheapest option available. You decide it's probably both. Cheap, yes, but cleverly disguised as strategic. You learn how to eat fast. Too slow and someone might knock the bowl out of your hands. Too fast and you'll regret it during combat drills. The trick is to find that middle ground. Just enough fuel. Never enough satisfaction. There's no such thing as indulgence in the ludus. There's sustenance, and there's survival. But hunger does weird things. At night you start dreaming of food more than freedom. Honeyed cakes, roasted goat, fresh bread still warm. The dreams hurt more than the bruises. You tell yourself it doesn't matter. That food is fuel. That gladiators don't need comfort. But sometimes, when no one's looking, you stare into the bottom of the empty bowl and imagine a better life, a kitchen, a hearth, maybe even a spoon. One evening, a new recruit arrives. Young, pale, clearly scared. He stares at his barley mash with disgust and asks, "Is this all they give us?" No one answers, but someone lets out a soft laugh. By now your body has adapted, sort of. The constant training, the relentless beatings, the grim meals they've carved away, everything's soft, everything's slow. And underneath, a version of you that eats to stay alive. Not for pleasure, not for strength, just survival. That's what the ludus is really feeding. Not your muscles, your fear. Sleep never lasts long, not here. You might close your eyes for a few precious hours, but every creak in the hallway, every distant clang of a dropped weapon, keeps your body tense. You've learned to sleep like an animal, light alert, ready to move. But even with all that, nothing prepares you for the deep, bone-gnawing fatigue that sets in after the first full month. It's not just exhaustion, it's rot, a slow decay that creeps into your joints, your thoughts, your very will. You wake up, not rested but rebooted just enough to do it all again. And your sleeping conditions certainly don't help. Your mat is more of a suggestion than a bed. A thin, sagging pile of straw that smells like a goat used it first. There's no pillow. If you're lucky, you ward up your tunic and hope the fleas don't swarm your face tonight. If you're really lucky, the man next to you doesn't talk in his sleep again about being chased by lions. Last night he swung an arm in his dream and clocked you in the jaw. You both apologized, but it still hurts to chew. And then there's the cold. Rome gets chilly at night, especially in winter. The stone walls suck the heat from your bones. There's no fire for warmth, not unless you've earned it and you haven't. The guards get cloaks and wine. You get your own breath to huddle against. Sometimes you hear rats scurry near the walls. Sometimes they nibble. Once one chewed through someone's sandal and took part of a toe. The guy limped for a week before they moved him to animal duty. No one saw him again. It's not just the physical discomfort that makes sleep difficult. It's the dreams. The arena haunts you now. You dream of sand, of steel, of crowds that blur into one roaring monster. You dream of falling again and again, but never waking up. Just falling. Historians still argue whether gladiators suffered from what we now call trauma. No scrolls describe it, but the signs are all there. Night terrors, sudden rages, the 1,000-yard stare of a man who's seen too many insides on the outside. They didn't have the word for it, but they knew it, the haunted look. You start recognizing it in others. The way some men flinch at the sound of metal. The way others refuse to speak about their past. One man, a quiet German with thick shoulders, hasn't spoken a single word since he arrived. Not one. But he fights like he's trying to erase himself. Sleep deprivation becomes part of the training. Not officially, of course. But they know it weakens you, makes you pliable, breaks down whatever resistance might be left. Some schools used it as punishment wake-up drills every 2 hours, night combat sessions, random inspections. You never knew when the next boot would kick your door open. The guards don't care how tired you are. If you collapse in training, they drag you to the shade, dump water on your head, and shout at you until you stand again. Or don't. And if you're thinking about escape, don't. The outer gates are watched day and night. Some say they're cursed. Others swear they're enchanted by the Lannister's personal priest. Either way, no one's gotten out. At least no one who talks about it. Your world shrinks with each sleepless night. You stop counting days. Time becomes measured in drills and meals and bruises. You lose track of the seasons. You forget faces. You forget your own. One morning someone calls your name or the name they gave you. You don't respond at first, not because you're ignoring them, but because you honestly forgot it was yours. You laugh a little when you realise. Then you stop because your ribs still hurt from yesterday's sparring match. One night it rains. Just a drizzle, soft and steady, the cell's ceiling leaks, forming a thin stream along the floor. Everyone grumbles, shifting their mats away from the growing puddle. But you stay where you are. Because that puddle is cold, yes, but it's also clean. For a few quiet moments, you let the water run along your hand, down your wrist. It feels like something pure in a place built on pain. And when you close your eyes that night, the dreams don't come, just the rain. Just the sound of it. Soft. Steady. Almost kind. By now you've accepted a strange truth: you're never alone, but you're always being watched. The ludus is like a theatre. Even when no one's cheering, there are always eyes. Trainers, guards, older gladiators pretending to nap, the doctore lurking near the shadows with his arms folded, and that unreadable scowl. You can't sneeze without someone hearing it, and you certainly can't slack off without someone reporting it. Privacy, that's a word from your old life. In the cell block, the walls are thin voices carry, and secrets are traded for soap or a slightly softer mat. Even when you whisper, someone hears. Especially if you're talking about escape, about hiding injuries, or anything that smells like weakness. Snitches aren't punished, they're rewarded. That's how this place keeps the chain tight. Fear doesn't just come from above, it trickles sideways. Then there are the guards. They don't wear uniforms, but you know them by their swagger. Some were former fighters now, too busted up to perform. They walk with limps, crooked spines, missing fingers, and carry those injuries like trophies. You can't tell if they hate you or envy you. Probably both. One of them, a bald man with a burn scar across his jaw, likes to rattle the cell doors at random hours just to see who flinches. If you jump, he grins. If you don't, he spits and moves on. And it's not just the humans who are watching. The walls themselves seem to listen. You develop a sixth sense for footsteps, the way soft sandals mean a guard you can bribe, while heavier boots mean trouble. You listen to the rhythm of keys. You learn to predict trouble before it steps into view. Still, the most unsettling watcher is the doctore. He doesn't yell like the guards. He doesn't curse or shove. He just observes. A statue with eyes. And when he does speak, it's surgical. Your left foot drags. Your grip is lazy. You breathe too loud. He says it like he's discussing weather. Nothing personal, just data to be adjusted. And then he walks on. Historians still debate how much freedom doctores had in gladiator schools. Some say they were strict only by necessity, bound by their Lannister's orders. Others think they were sadists given free rein. You lean toward the second, not because he beats you, but because he doesn't. The silence is worse. The cold calculation. Like he's building something out of bone and sweat, and you're just one more part in his monstrous machine. Then there's the internal, watching the kind you do to yourself. You begin noticing every twitch in your own muscles, every odd ache, every bruise that lingers. You monitor your body like it's a borrowed weapon. Because any mistake, one slipped step, one strained tendon might cost you your next fight, might cost you everything. Even in the bathhouse, such as it is, you're not alone. A long, cracked basin filled with lukewarm water and floating bits of things you'd rather not identify. Men wash quickly, eyes down. No talking. And always one of the guards watching, arms crossed, enjoying the illusion of dominance. The only moment you get to yourself is in the latrine. Even then, it smells like defeat and rotten lentils. But at least no one talks there. It's a sacred silence of shared misery. You remember once before all this the feeling of walking through a forest, alone. The breeze, the space, the way your thoughts could breathe. That memory is a relic now. You protect it like treasure. A moment of peace in a life that no longer allows it. You've learned to perform even when no one claps, to eat, sleep, and bleed under scrutiny. You've forgotten what it feels like to truly relax. Your shoulders are always tight, your jaw always clenched. You catch yourself flinching at shadows, tensing at footsteps, scanning the courtyard like prey. And in the oddest twist of all, you realize you've become one of them. You watch too. You monitor others, how they spar, how they breathe, who limps, who cracks. Not out of cruelty, out of calculation. Because if you're paired with that limping man tomorrow, you'll know to target the right leg. Because if that one with the shaky grip draws against you, you'll last 5 minutes longer. You didn't ask for this mind, it just arrived. Built by dust and fear and eyes. It happens slowly at first. You don't even notice the shift. One day, you're stumbling through drills, barely holding the practice sword upright. The next, you're moving on instinct, your body reacting before your mind even catches up. You start to flow through the movements. Strike, block, pivot, advance. You stop hearing the doctore yell. You just move. Fighting becomes habit. Not just routine habit, like breathing, like flinching at loud noises. You've been hit so many times your brain has created pathways where hesitation used to live. You begin to read your opponent not by his stance, but by the flicker in his eyes, the way his heel lifts before he swings. You become something else, not just a man with a sword, but a man who is the sword. And strangely, that makes it easier. You stop overthinking. The panic quiets. You still feel fear, sure, but it doesn't control you. It just lingers like a background cough. What you really feel now is anticipation. But don't mistake this for comfort. Just because the fighting feels familiar doesn't mean it hurts less. The bruises are still fresh, the muscles still sore, the injuries still unpredictable. One misstep and your wrist twists. One lucky blow from your opponent and you're on your back seeing stars. And there's still no such thing as a safe match, not even in practice. Because some of your fellow gladiators, they're not here to train. They're here to win. And if they have to hurt you in the yard to reduce their odds of facing you later in the arena, they'll do it. A poorly aimed strike to your knee. Here, a deliberate trip there. Your reflexes sharpen out of necessity. Sparring matches take on new weight. You memorize styles. There's the brute who leads with his shoulder and likes to charge. The tall one with long reach who relies on distance. The quiet one who waits until you breathe out to strike. You keep mental notes, not just to survive, but to predict, to prepare. Historians still argue whether gladiators were truly skilled fighters or simply lucky survivors. Some say the best were technical masters. Others believe many won through brute strength and sheer aggression. You've seen both, but skill buys time. time buys life, and that's all anyone here wants, another day. In rare moments between drills, you practice alone. You've found a corner in the yard where the shade hits just right. You swing there when no one's watching, trying to smooth out your footwork. You notice the angle of your elbows, the twist in your hips. You aren't aiming to impress anymore. You're aiming to survive. One afternoon, the doctore stops near you, says nothing, just watches. Then after what feels like hours, he mutters, less shoulder, more hips, then he walks off. It's not a compliment, but it feels like one. You repeat the movement, and he's right. It's better. The body adapts. It's incredible, really. What felt impossible a month ago is now second nature. You've stopped gasping for breath halfway through sparring. Your balance has improved. You even catch yourself offering tips to a newer recruit, just a gesture, a quiet word. He looks at you like you're a veteran. You want to laugh, but your ribs still ache. At night, you go over the day's fights in your head, not just yours, everyone's. Who's improving? Who's slipping? Who might not be here next week? It's not cruelty. It's data. It's survival. Because one day you might face them in the arena. And when you do, you can't afford nostalgia. There's a strange moment that happens sometimes right before a match. You square off, grip your weapon, stare your partner down. The world narrows. The noise fades. For a heartbeat, it's just two people, eyes locked, both pretending they don't want to die. Then it begins. And it's no longer about fear. It's not even about pain. It's about rhythm, about reaction, about staying alive a little longer. You lose, you win, you bleed, you block, you fall, you get up. And repeat. The day arrives sooner than you expect. You wake up sore, same as always, ready to trudge through more drills, more bruises, more barley mash, and then you hear it. A whisper that spreads like wildfire through the cell block. Someone got the list, the one with names. Your name is on it. You try to act like it doesn't matter, like it's just another day, but your body betrays you, hands colder than usual, breath a little shorter, that feeling in your gut like a stone dropped into your stomach and just kept falling. Today is your first real fight. Not sparring, not practice, not training. An actual match with an actual crowd, with actual stakes. And no one's calling pause when things get too rough. There's no breakfast today, just a cold cup of water and a nod from the guard. You're led into a side chamber with 3 others men you've trained beside for weeks. You don't speak. There's nothing to say. A Munira day. That's what they call it. The offering, and you're part of it. A slave with a shaved head approaches, carrying a tray of dull razors and a clay pot of something that smells like stale olive oil. He smears it on your arms, your chest, makes your skin glisten, makes the muscles look sharper, the sweat more dramatic. It's not for you. It's for the audience. Your helmet is polished, your sword sharpened. The shield they hand you is slightly larger than the one you trained with. Heavier, too. The grip is worn, carved with marks. Someone else held this. Maybe they survived, maybe they didn't. The doctor inspects you briefly, adjusts your stance, taps your chest with a knuckle. Stay low, keep your shield up. Then he walks away. That's the pep talk. No one explains the match. No one says whether it's to the death. That's part of the thrill. The audience gets to wonder. You get to find out the hard way. Historians still argue how often gladiatorial matches ended in death. Some say it was rare killing trained fighters was expensive. Others argue it was common, especially during festivals or political events when blood brought applause. The truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. But to you, statistics mean nothing. Because if you die today, it'll be 100%. You walk through a narrow corridor lit by torches. The walls are covered in scratches. At first, you think they're just scuff marks. Then you notice their names. Dozens of them etched into stone, some with numbers, some just letters. Probably made by men like you, some hopeful, some terrified. The light at the end of the tunnel is blinding. You squint, and then you hear it. The roar. It hits like a wave. A tsunami of voices crashing over you. Cheers, shouts, laughter, jeers. It's deafening. Thousands of people all here to watch a handful of you hurt each other for entertainment. You step onto the sand. The heat rises through your sandals. The brightness makes your eyes water. The space is vast. Tiers of stone banners, fluttering faces leaning forward like vultures watching for a stumble. Across from you, your opponent steps forward. You've seen him before, a tall man with a scar down his jaw. You've sparred maybe twice. He was good, not great, but good. Today he looks calm, focused. You wonder if he feels the same cold spike in his belly. A herald steps out and announces something in a booming voice. You catch words like honor and spectacle and Mars. The crowd cheers again. A horn sounds. Then silence. The fight begins. He moves first, a low sweep of his blade. You deflect. The crowd murmurs. Your heart pounds like a war drum. He lunges again. You sidestep. Your training kicks in almost without thinking. Strike, block, pivot, shield up. The rhythm of the arena is unlike training. Everything is sharper, louder, more real. Every blow matters. You feel each one in your bones. The sword hums in your hand. The shield grows heavier with each clash. Then you slip. Just for a second. A patch of loose sand. He sees it lunges and grazes your thigh. The pain is instant hot. The crowd roars blood. That's what they wanted. You grit your teeth, push back. Your sword arcs up, catches his shoulder. A good hit, not deep but enough to make him stumble. You both back off. Breathe. Circle. You exchange a few more blows. Time slows. Or maybe speeds up. You're not sure. It's all blur and instinct now. You forget the crowd, forget the guards, forget your name. And then he hesitates, just slightly. You swing. Your blade knocks his aside and you land a hit hard across his ribs. He falls. He's down, disarmed, breathing hard. And suddenly it's not over. Because now you wait. You look up toward the editor, the man in charge of today's games. He holds out his hand. Thumb sideways. The crowd chants. Some scream for death, some beg for mercy. You look back at your opponent. He meets your eyes, says nothing, just waits. The thumb turns. Down. You raise your blade. And wonder in that last moment, are you still yourself? Or just another piece of the show? The crowd erupts before your blade even finishes its arc. You barely hear it. Your hands are numb. Your mind's somewhere else, floating disconnected from the body that just delivered the final blow. You stare down at the man you've just defeated. His eyes have gone still, but something in you keeps waiting for him to move, to breathe, to forgive you. But he doesn't. Someone behind you yells, a guard maybe. You turn slowly, lifting your sword in a daze. Then comes the roar, the true roar, the one that feels like it could crack the sky. They're not cheering your skill, not your precision, not your restraint. They're cheering the blood, the moment, the drama of death performed on demand. You're no longer a person. You're entertainment. You're herded out of the arena like cattle, back through the tunnel that now smells even more strongly of blood and sweat and fear. Someone pats your back. Another presses a cloth to your thigh. You don't speak. You don't even blink. You're still seeing his eyes. Later, when the sun begins to drop behind the city walls and the torches are lit around the ludus, the other fighters look at you differently. Not friendlier, just differently. A few nod. A few avoid your gaze altogether. You're one of them now. Not a trainee, not a rookie, not a name on a list. You're a killer. That night, lying on your mat, you think you'll finally sleep. You've earned it, right? But your eyes stay open, tracing cracks in the ceiling. You replay the fight, over and over like a scratched record. Not the hits, not the cheers, just the moment his weapons slipped from his fingers, the way his shoulders dropped, the silent surrender. You wonder if he would have shown you mercy. You hope not, because it would make what you did even harder to swallow. The next morning breakfast comes with a perk, an extra scoop of barley mash and a small cup of watered wine. The guards call it your victory feast. You almost laugh. Almost, but your mouth is too dry and your stomach turns at the smell. There's no rest, no congratulations, just more drills, more bruises, more of the same. But now, when you're called into the yard, people step aside. When you grip your sword, others notice. You've proven you can kill, and that means they have to assume you'll do it again. And the crowd, they remember you. Your Lannister, Gaius Publius Drusus, makes sure of it. A boy is sent to scratch your name onto a slate board in the training hall next to a tally mark 1 win. A small clay plaque with your face and made-up heroic backstory is moulded and passed around the market. The Gaul Slayer, it says, even though neither of you were Gauls. Historians still debate how often gladiators were mythologized, given fake origins, embellished records, heroic titles. It was part branding, part propaganda. It made the crowd care. It made the deaths easier to cheer for. No one mourns a villain. Everyone cheers for a myth. You've become one. That afternoon during break, a woman approaches the ludus. She's wealthy, rings on every finger, a silk veil fluttering in the breeze. She carries a tray of fruit which she presents to a guard. For him, she says, nodding in your direction. The guard chuckles. He'll enjoy it. You don't get the fruit. You never even hear about it. But you see the tray being passed around behind the barracks later, empty. Still, the message is clear. You've been noticed. Which is dangerous. Because now the crowd expects more. They'll want drama, risk, blood. If your next fight is boring, they'll turn on you. They always do. The same ones who cheer your triumph will howl for your death the moment you hesitate. And worse, you're now more valuable. Your Lannister will keep pushing you into higher stakes matches. Not just rookies. Not just random pairings. Real threats. Other killers. You start checking the new arrivals with sharper eyes. Who's big? Who moves well? Who limps? Who looks like they've killed before? Because one of them will be across from you soon. The man you fought, his name was Dama. You found that out later from an older gladiator who'd trained with him in another ludus. Dama had survived 3 matches. He was a decent man, liked figs, wanted to earn his freedom and open a small bakery. You nod when you hear this, as if that somehow makes it better. It doesn't. But now you carry him with you. Not in guilt, not exactly, but in memory. His eyes, the weight of his final breath, the strange quiet that followed. That becomes part of you now. A new scar. But not on your body. They tell you the next day that he was lucky, Damar, the man you killed, that a quick death in the arena is more honourable than lingering in the infirmary with a festering wound or rotting in a cage, waiting to be mauled by wild animals. You nod, but you don't agree. There's no such thing as a lucky death, just degrees of suffering. What surprises you most isn't that you survived your first fight, it's what happens afterward. You expected pain, nightmares, guilt. And yes, those things arrive. But so does something else expectation. You're now a proven product, a confirmed killer. And that means your price just went up. The Lannister is pleased. He doesn't say it, of course. He never does. But your rations improve ever so slightly, an extra strip of dried meat, a drizzle of honey on your barley mash. Your training sessions change too. You're no longer paired with the new recruits. You're sparring with seasoned fighters now, some of whom have notched more kills than they have toes. And here's the twist. Some of them like you. It starts with nods, then advice. Watch his left side. Don't let your back foot slide in sand. One man, an older Thracian with arms like tree trunks, even sharpens your blade for you. Says nothing while doing it, just hands it back afterward with a grunt. It's not friendship. It's acknowledgement. A kind of professional courtesy. But camaraderie doesn't protect you, not here. Because every person who trains beside you might also be scheduled to kill you. You've learnt this already. Dharma was once someone's training partner too. Still you cling to those human moments. A shared smirk during drills. A silent toast with stolen wine. A whispered joke about a guard's terrible breath. They're brief, fragile things, but they remind you that you're not completely gone. Not yet. Then comes the pain. You pick up a minor injury during a takedown drill, a twist in your ankle. Nothing dramatic, no bones sticking out, but enough to swell, enough to limp. You try to hide it. Bad idea. The doctore notices immediately. Favouring your right, he says without looking at you. Later you're given double drills, not as punishment but as proof. If you want to stay in rotation, you fight through it. If you limp too long, you're benched. If you're benched, you're forgotten. And in the ludus, to be forgotten is to die quietly. So you grit your teeth and push through. Wrap the ankle tight. Pretend it's fine. You learn to shift your stance to compensate. It slows you slightly, but you hide it well. At night, you soak it in a shallow basin and pray to gods you stopped believing in weeks ago. Medical care here is, let's say, practical. There's a man called the healer, but no one knows his real name. He has a box of tools that look more like a butcher's kit than anything else, hooks, tongs, a branding iron for cauterizing. His method for dislocated joints is to slam them back into place using the wall. If it works, great. If not well, at least you can still scream. That entertains the crowd. He offers you a salve for your ankle. You take it even though it smells like dead fish and burns like fire ants. Later, you find out it's made from a mixture of crushed garlic, sheep fat, and fermented mouse droppings. You'd be more disgusted if it didn't work. Historians still debate how advanced Roman gladiator medicine truly was. Some claim it rivaled military field care, focused, efficient, and built on necessity. Others believe it was haphazard at best, based on superstition and improvisation. From your experience, both seem true. There's science in how your arm is wrapped and madness in how your wounds are disinfected vinegar and burning coals. What stings more than the cuts is the fear, not of pain you're used to that, but of falling just far enough to be considered disposable. You've seen it happen. A man sprains a wrist and can't hold a sword for 3 days. By the 4th, he's reassigned to animal duty. A week later, he's gone. You hold your sword tighter. You train harder. Because you've tasted what it means to be noticed. And in a world that profits from your suffering attention is the only currency that buys time. One night, the guards bring in a new shipment of medical supplies, some ointments, fresh linen wraps, even a few iron splints. You joke that someone important must be visiting soon. You're right, a senator's son is scheduled to fight. First time. Spectacle guaranteed. The next day, you're paired with him for drills. He's young, clumsy, laughs too much. His armour is spotless, his shield polished to a mirror shine. He tries to shake your hand before the match. You stare at him until he lowers it. You could hurt him, easily, but you don't. Because everyone's watching, and because you remember what it was like to be that scared. You give him a few bruises, just enough to make him humble. He thanks you afterward. You say nothing. But you wonder if he's across from you in the arena one day, will you show mercy again? Or will the crowd decide for you? You hear the growling before you even see them. It's deep guttural and not entirely canine, the kind of sound that makes the small hairs on the back of your neck stand straight. You've just finished your drills, arms sore, feet blistered when the gate to the southern pen creaks open and 3 handlers shuffle in. They're dragging cages. And inside those cages, eyes glint. The beasts have arrived. Not men, not now. Animals. Today's fight isn't man versus man. It's Venatio the beast hunt. Except you're not the hunter. You're the showpiece. The Lannister's voice rings through the yard. We've got a bear from Syria. And a leopard from Mauritania. He grins. Don't get them mixed up. You don't laugh? The bear is massive. Its fur is patchy matted in places, but its eyes are sharp. Calculating. The leopard, lean and sleek, paces back and forth in its cage tail twitching. You wonder if it's been fed today. You hope not, because a full cat might toy with you. An empty one will simply finish the job. You try not to stare, but it's impossible. These creatures weren't meant to be here. They belong in wild forests, high cliffs somewhere with rivers and space and prey that runs on 4 legs, not 2. Yet here they are caged, drugged, snarling and soon released. Historians still argue over how the Romans managed to transport so many exotic beasts into the city. Some believe the animals were herded across continents in caravans. Others suggest elaborate sea routes involving custom ships just for lions, elephants, and crocodiles. However they got here, the result is the same beasts made into actors for a very bloody play. The handlers are a strange breed themselves. Tattooed, missing fingers, smelling like goat sweat, and something worse. They don't speak much Latin, just enough to curse and warn you not to make sudden moves. You nod like that's a helpful tip. You're given a special weapon for today's rehearsal, a long spear with a wide head. For the bear, someone says. As if it matters. As if you'll get a second strike. Then they pull the leopard out. Even drugged it moves with terrifying grace. The chain around its neck is thick as your wrist, and still the handler stumbles trying to control it. You catch its eyes, yellow, flat, ancient, not afraid, not angry, just ready. That night, There's no sleep. You lie on your mat staring at the ceiling and your thoughts twist like smoke. You try to imagine the arena again. The roar of the crowd, the heat, the sunlight on your helmet. And then, a blur. Claws, teeth, screams, yours. You don't know. You try to remember the drills they showed you. Aim for the eyes, or the throat, or under the ribs if you're lucky. But no one tells you what to do when it jumps. No one tells you how to fight something that doesn't care about your title or your win streak. In the morning, your name is called. Along with 2 others. You won't be alone in the ring. That's both good and bad. More targets means you might not die first. But it also means you might have to watch someone else be torn apart before your turn comes. You're ushered into the holding pen. The gates creak open. Sunlight pours in. The crowd is already screaming. You're shoved into the arena. The sand feels looser today, soft beneath your feet. Bad for footing. Good for blood absorption. You grip your spear tighter. The announcer draws it out, introduces the beasts like honoured guests. From the wild mountains of Syria, the beast with iron paws. The terror of shepherds, Urso Magnus. The crowd loves it. The gate opens. The bear lumbers forward, blinking in the light. It's slow at first, groggy, but then its head lifts and its nostrils flare. It smells you. Your hands sweat, your legs twitch. You don't run, you don't charge. You wait. The first man rushes forward, brave, stupid. He jabs at the bear's flank. It turns fast, faster than it should. A single paw sends him flying. The crowd gasps, then cheers. You don't wait for the second act. You move. Low spear aimed at its side, not too close, just enough to distract it. You stab. It roars. You stumble backward. It doesn't follow. It turns instead to the third man, the one who froze. The bear charges. You hear a scream, then silence. And the roar of the crowd. The handlers blow their whistles. More guards pour in waving torches. The bear is herded back into its cage. You and the second survivor are pulled out. 1 dead, 2 wounded. 1 more name for the tally board. Anul. Later you sit in the infirmary. A deep gouge in your shoulder. Not fatal, but bad enough. The healer pours vinegar on it. You howl. Could have been worse, he says. You believe him. Because next week, it's the leopard. It's almost easier when it's a stranger. When you don't know their name, their story, or how they take their barley mash. But today, when the doctor reads out the pairings, your chest tightens. The name beside yours isn't a stranger. It's Gaius. You've trained with him for months. He's the one who helped you bind your ankle that week it nearly gave out. The one who taught you the trick to shift your weight mid-swing. The one who made you laugh once during latrine duty when he mimicked the Lannister's pompous strut so perfectly you nearly dropped the water bucket. And now you're meant to fight him. The announcement is met with silence. A few of the other gladiators exchange glances. You look at Gaius. He gives you a short, almost apologetic shrug. There's no anger in his eyes, just resignation. This is what we are, he says later quietly. Pieces on a board. The worst part? He's right. That afternoon, the 2 of you are called to a rehearsal match, not in the arena, but in the courtyard. A warm-up, they say. A chance to practice the rhythm of your fight choreograph a few dramatic moments. Not to make it fake, of course. Just entertaining. You go through the motions, you clash blades, you perform the right grunts, the right footwork, the showy twirls and dramatic pauses. But every time your eyes meet his, something inside you falters. This isn't like the others. This one knows you. You know him. That night you share a drink. Someone's managed to sneak in a small flask of sour wine. Gaius passes it to you. First to fall buys the afterlife, he jokes. You force a smile. Historians still argue whether gladiators truly fought their friends in the arena. Some say yes, loyalty meant little under the thumb of survival. Others argue that certain trainers or patrons avoided such pairings to preserve morale. But the records are scattered. And here there's no room for philosophy. The morning of the match is grey. Overcast skies. The kind of weather that makes you hope irrationally that the gods might call it off. They don't. You march together shoulder to shoulder into the staging tunnel. The guards separate you at the arch. You nod once. He nods back. Then the gates open. The roar is lower today, muted like the crowd knows what's about to happen. Or maybe it's the clouds, maybe it's your ears. Either way, the arena feels different, less like a stage, more like a graveyard. You face each other across the sand. The announcer booms out your titles. Yours is the flame, his is the bull. The crowd cheers, not for you, for the fight. A horn blows. You move. It's cautious at first, calculated, no wild swings, no wasted energy. You both know each other's patterns. The fights you've rehearsed 100 times, and now you're improvising the one that counts. Your blades clash, sparks fly. You pivot, he ducks. He swings high, you block. You swing low, he dodges. It's like dancing in a nightmare. The crowd starts to get restless. They want blood. So you give them blood. You cut his arm not deep, just enough to draw a gasp from the crowd. He counters with a slice across your shoulder. Pain flares, real now. The tempo builds. You start hitting harder, faster. The crowd's cheering returns. They sense the momentum. They smell the desperation. They don't care that you trained together, that you shared wine and bruises and broken dreams. They just want a victor. He lands a hit to your ribs. You slam your shield into his chest. He stumbles. You hesitate, just for a second. He recovers. Your breathing grows ragged. Sweat stings your eyes. Sand clings to every inch of your skin. The sword feels heavier now. The shield like a slab of stone. Then he slips. A misstep. A patch of bloodied sand. His foot slides, his balance falters. You lunge. Your blade meets his, but his grip is off. You overpower it. The weapon clatters to the ground. He's disarmed. You freeze. He kneels, arms outstretched, head bowed. The crowd howls. You wait. The editor rises from his chair. Today it's a wealthy merchant filling in for a senator. He holds out his hand, looks to the crowd. The chant starts, some for mercy, others for death. They roar like gods and you're their storm. The hand wavers. Then it turns. Down. You stare at your blade. Gaius doesn't beg. He just looks at you and nods. You raise your weapon, but you don't remember the rest. Just the silence. After. You walk back through the tunnel, but you don't feel your feet touch the ground. Everything is muted. The guards speak, but their words slide off your ears like oil on water. Someone claps you on the shoulder. You don't turn. You don't react. Your sword is still in your hand, bloodied. You don't remember gripping it so tightly, but your knuckles are white. You sit alone in the corner of the barracks that night. No one approaches. Not out of fear, out of respect. Everyone saw. Everyone knows. You didn't hesitate. You didn't cry. You did what the crowd demanded. The same crowd that now eats dates and roasted chickpeas under coloured awnings, laughing and retelling your match like it was a bedtime story. Did you see that spin the way he dropped to his knees like he'd practiced it, one will say? And the final blow so clean. Clean, that's what they call it. But you know the truth. Gaius wasn't just your opponent. He was your reflection, your reminder that this life, this system strips everything human down to what looks best on a coin. The Lannister is thrilled. Of course he is. You've won again. And this one will be remembered. There's already talk of commemorative tiles, tiny painted plaques to sell in the markets. The flame defeats the bull. Kids will play with them. Merchants will trade them. You'll be on a wall somewhere next to a list of wines and bread prices. You're profitable now. Very. That makes you dangerous and valuable. So your conditions improve again. A better blanket, slightly thicker sandals. A guard actually nods at you rather than barking. And they let you bathe. You sit in the warm water, letting it soak the blood from your arms. Some of it is yours. Most isn't. You stare at the pink swirls in the water and wonder if they'll ever go clear again. A younger fighter joins you. He says nothing, but his eyes speak volumes. You're what he wants to be. You're what he will become. You want to tell him not to. But what would be the point? You step out of the bath and dry yourself with a threadbare cloth. Your reflection in the metal plate on the wall surprises you. Your eyes are darker, deeper, like something else is looking back. That night the dreams come back, but not the usual ones. Not blood, not screams. No, this time. It's silence. Gaius kneeling, the nod, that moment of stillness, over and over until the silence becomes unbearable. The next morning you're summoned. It's not a fight, it's a celebration. You're led into a private courtyard behind the Lannister's villa. Draped curtains, musicians playing soft lyre music. A feast is laid out: fruits, olives, fish, and yes, even wine. Real wine. No, not the sour dregs they usually give you. You're seated like a guest. Not chained, not guarded, just seated. The Lannister toasts to your victories. He raises a goblet. Others around the table echo him. Wealthy men, senators, merchants, their wives titter behind fans. You are the evening's novelty. A living legend. One man asks how it felt. You don't answer. Another wants to know if the blood was real. You just nod. Someone claps. The crowd laughs. You feel your stomach twist. Later, a servant offers you a fig soaked in honey. You take it. It tastes like ash. Historians still argue whether gladiators were ever truly celebrated. Some believe they were honoured like athletes, idols of physical perfection. Others insist it was more like lionising a trained dog admiration without dignity. Tonight, you feel like both. The guests eventually leave. You return to your cell. The candle they gave you burns low. You stare at the wall and wonder how many names were scratched into it before yours. You take your nail, scratch one more. Not his name. Yours. The one they took. Because you don't want to forget. Not yet. They give you a palm branch. It's handed to you ceremoniously, with as much drama as a general receiving a laurel wreath. The crowd watches as you raise it stiff, awkward, barely believing the ritual is meant for you. The announcer declares you victor, and the branch is thrust into your hand like a golden ticket. It's not golden. It's just a palm branch, dry, brittle, slightly cracked near the base. The prize for killing your friend. You don't know what to do with it. Some wave theirs, others raise them overhead like a trophy. You hold yours low, not in shame, but because it doesn't feel like yours. Still, it's something. That night they present you with the other rewards. A small leather pouch containing 5 silver coins, neatly stacked, freshly minted. Enough to buy a decent pair of sandals. Not enough to buy freedom. Not nearly. A fresh tunic, white, crisp, unstained. And more glances. From guards, from fighters, from visiting patrons. You're being marked as someone to watch. Not for failure, but for favour. And in this world, favour is a sword with 2 edges. You're not foolish enough to believe any of this means safety. In fact, it means the opposite. You've become visible, a rising name in the arena. And Rome loves to raise its stars just high enough to watch them fall. The lanista calls you to his office. It's your first time seeing the inside. Marble floor, scrolls stacked high. A caged songbird in the corner chirping to itself, like it doesn't know where it is. He gestures for you to sit. You don't. He doesn't insist. You've done well, he says, sipping wine. The crowd likes you. You nod. He studies you for a long moment. You're what we call a Palus Primus now. First-rank fighter. He lets the title settle in the air. You'll be promoted. Better food, better quarters, but also better opponents. Of course! You're dismissed. You walk back to the barracks slower than usual. Not out of pain your wounds are healing, but because you don't know what to think. You're climbing the ranks. You're winning. You're being rewarded. And none of it feels like victory. The new quarters are better. A single cot, a thicker blanket, even a crude wooden stool to sit on. You get to eat separately now. A bowl of lentil stew seasoned, a piece of cheese, warm bread, luxury. But no one eats with you. You're a champion now, and champions don't have friends. They have rivals. Your next match is announced 3 days later. It's not a duel, it's a group event. 6 men per side, team versus team. These are bloodier, less predictable. You could do everything right and still die because someone next to you slipped. You're handed a retiarius net and trident. You blink. You're not trained as a net fighter. You trained with the sword and shield. You open your mouth to protest, but then close it again. This is a test. The lanista wants to see if your fame translates across fighting styles. He wants to see if the crowd loves you no matter what you wear, no matter how you fight. So you learn. You practice with the net, awkward, clumsy, frustrating. It tangles. It snags. The trident feels too light, too slow. But you adapt. You always do. In the yard, some watch you with amusement, others with fear. You're not the best net fighter, but you don't have to be. You just have to survive. Historians still argue whether gladiators were often forced to switch styles mid-career. Some evidence suggests it was rare, reserved for the most skilled. Others believe it happened frequently, especially to those being groomed as stars. You know one thing the crowd doesn't care. They don't see the confusion, the danger. They just want variety. The group match is chaos. 12 men, sand flying, shields clashing, nets whipping through the air. Somewhere in the blur, you lose sight of your own team. A man goes down beside you, stabbed through the chest. Another screams and clutches his knee. You leap over him, cast your net wide, and catch a helmet. The crowd erupts. Not because he fell, but because it looked good. You land a blow with the trident. It hits shoulder, not fatal, but flashy. The man stumbles. Someone else finishes him. You end the match standing, 3 from your side still breathing, 1 from theirs. Victory. Another palm branch. Another tally on the board. You sleep that night not from peace, but from sheer exhaustion. Your dreams are heavy, not nightmares, just sand, just the sound of metal on bone. In the morning, you find the net hanging neatly at the end of your cot, a silent message. You pass the test. You wake up to singing. It's faint off-key drifting in from the outer courtyard. A woman's voice, maybe 2. At first you think you're dreaming because nothing in the ludus ever sounds that soft, but the sound is real lilting syrupy like honey poured into cracked stone. The guards are already chuckling. Fangirls, one says, spitting. You step outside to see them. 2 women standing just outside the main gate. They're dressed in bright fabrics, layered silk, and dyed linen, wealthy enough to smell like oranges instead of sweat. One of them holds a small bouquet of herbs, the other a scroll. She waves it high and calls your name. Well, not your name. Your arena name, the Flame. You blink. That's new. Turns out gladiators are not just fighters. They're fantasies, symbols, flesh-wrapped myths in sandals. And some women in Rome are obsessed. The beautiful ones, the bored ones, the strange ones. One story floating around says gladiator sweat is an aphrodisiac, that noble women sneak into ludi with empty vials and collect it like perfume. Another says hair from a champion's helmet cures infertility. You'd laugh if it weren't so weird and partially true. You've seen at least one guard paid extra to sneak scraps of cloth from a fighter's tunic. For what? Who knows? Historians know this part well. Graffiti from Pompeii shows women fawning over gladiators. Scribbles like Celadus the Thracian makes the girls sigh, and Crescens is the heartthrob of the arena. Some were even offered marriages by noble women. It wasn't just lust, it was danger. Status by rebellion. A brush with death wrapped in muscle and glory. Later that day, you're summoned to the front courtyard. You think it's a punishment, or maybe another match. But no, it's her. One of the women from earlier. Veil lowered now, perfume clinging to the air like heat. She wants to speak with you, she says. Just speak. A guard hovers nearby, but doesn't interrupt. She asks questions about your matches, your thoughts, your feelings, as if any of those are safe to share. You answer with nods, short words, not cold, just careful. She smiles. You're quieter than I imagined. You want to say because the louder ones die first. She touches your arm lightly before leaving. Slips a small satchel into your hand, dates, real ones, sweet soft, untouched by ash or dust. The next morning you find a ribbon tied to the gate. Blue silk. Yours. Word spreads fast. Some of the men tease you. Others glare. Not with jealousy, with suspicion. Because gifts are currency, and favours come with debts. That evening, the Lanista calls you in. He's smiling. You've caught the attention of Claudia Valeria, he says, tapping a scroll. A senator's niece. You say nothing. She's invested. She wants to sponsor your next match. If you win, she wants to celebrate with a private dinner. He leans forward. And if you lose, well, she'll move on. That's the game. You're not just fighting for your life now. You're fighting for someone's fleeting fascination. The next match is announced. You're up against a man known only as the Jackal. No one knows his real name, but everyone knows his record. Fast, vicious, no survivors. Claudia Valeria will be watching. You're issued a new set of armor. Polished bronze-crested helmet, red-dyed plume. The crowd needs to know who the favourite is, who to cheer, who to mourn if things go badly. You stand at the gate feeling the weight of the helmet press into your shoulders. Not just metal, expectation. You glance toward the upper tier. A woman in a blue veil leans forward. She waves. The gate opens. The Jackal charges. He's fast, but not smarter. You've fought too many matches to be rattled by speed. You counter-deflect, tire him out, make him miss, let him think he's leading. Then you take control. The fight is brutal but brief. You win. No speech, no show. Just a clean kill. Later in the barracks, there's a feast. Dates, roasted nuts, a cake sweetened with honey and almonds. The fighters devour it. You eat in silence. The ribbon is still tied to your wrist. That night, a servant delivers a message Claudia awaits. You go. The villa is enormous, fragrant, padded, safe. You sit on cushions so soft they feel like clouds. She feeds you grapes. She asks if you believe in fate. You lie. She kisses your hand. You close your eyes and remember the Jackal's last breath. You wonder if she would have kissed his hand if he'd won. Probably. The armor glitters more now than it protects. Your crest is taller, your tunic's been dyed crimson. Your helmet, once plain iron, now has sculpted cheek guards and a flared visor that makes you look like a god of war. But you're not a god. You're a character. You've become a commodity with branding. The Lannister has someone painting you now tiny clay busts, little figurines in your likeness sold at the Forum. Kids run through alleyways yelling your name. Not your name, of course. Your arena title, the Flame. You see your silhouette etched onto cheap shields, scratched into walls, even baked into loaves of festival bread. You've joined the ranks of the living legends. And that means they start using you to sell the games. You're paraded before matches, sometimes not even to fight, just to appear. The announcer calls your name and the crowd erupts before you've even drawn your sword. It's surreal being cheered for surviving, not winning, not triumphing, just still being here. You nod, raise a hand, do the things you're supposed to do. They eat it up. One day you're given a scroll to read. It's part of a ceremonial pre-fight speech. Some flourish about bravery, honor, and Mars. You stumble through the Latin. The crowd loves it. Laughs in all the right places. You hate it, but you smile. Because you've learned the secret. This isn't about being a warrior. It's about being a product. The more memorable your look, your name, your kills, the more the crowd invests. The more they chant, the more they care. And caring equals coins. For the Lannister, for the vendors, for the city. Not for you. You get better rations. A few extra coins, the illusion of choice, but your life is still borrowed. One bad fight and everything you've built is gone. Fame doesn't stop steel. Historians often cite this strange duality gladiators as both slaves and celebrities. Some were adored, even envied, but never free. You could be cheered like a king and still die like a dog. The only thing separating legend from carcass was luck. You play along. Because you have to. There's even talk now of pairing you with another rising star, a woman named Bellatrix. She fights with twin blades and a silver mask. The crowd loves her. They want to see the flame and the warrior star clash, or fall in love, or both. Stories swirl. The Lannister smiles when he hears the rumours. Let them imagine, he says. It builds anticipation. You're handed a new cape for your next appearance. It's absurd, bright red, too long, too heavy, but it flutters well in the breeze. The crowd roars when you walk into the arena with it. You do a slow turn just as rehearsed. Somewhere in the back row you hear someone shout, "Burn them down, flame!" You don't know who they mean. Probably whoever you're fighting. The match is short, too short. The crowd complains. So you're told to fight again back-to-back matches. Unusual, risky, but the energy is high and the editor wants a spectacle. You wipe blood from your arms and nod. You're handed a fresh weapon and pushed back into the sun. This time your opponent is fast clever. He lands a cut on your side. The crowd gasps. You stagger, then recover your sword, tracing a wide arc that knocks him off balance. A clean follow-up puts him on the ground. You wait for the signal. The thumb turns up. Mercy. The crowd cheers even louder. Forgiveness, magnanimity, look at the flame, merciful and fierce. You didn't do it for mercy. You did it because you were tired. After the fight, someone asks if the mercy was scripted. You don't answer. A few nights later, you're invited to another gathering. Nobles this time. High-ranking. You sit at the edge of the room like a pet lion. They ask about your scars, your victories, your dreams. You offer clipped answers. Someone asks if you enjoy the games. You stare at him. Do you enjoy being watched while you eat, you ask. The room goes quiet. You're escorted out early. The next day, the Lannister calls you in. Careful, he says. They love a rebel until he speaks too clearly. You nod. You've learned your role. One day, you overhear two patrons arguing at the forum. One insists you're a Numidian prince fighting for redemption. The other swears you're a disgraced Roman noble. Both are wrong. Neither cares. You've become a mirror. People see what they want to see. Not who you are, but who you represent. And that version of you. He never gets to leave the arena. You try to shake the sand from your boot, but it's useless. It's always there, ground into the seams, clinging to your toes, rubbing your skin raw day after day. It's in your clothes, your hair, your mouth. You spit and still taste it. It's not just dirt anymore, it's part of you. That's the thing about the arena, the sand is everywhere. At first it seems harmless, just a backdrop, a setting. But after enough time it becomes your environment, your battlefield, your bed, the blood-soaked carpet you perform on. It gets in your wounds and makes them sting. It hides traps, a dropped weapon, a loose stone, a slick of gore. It muffles your footfalls, hides your opponents until it's too late. No one tells you how much of your time you'll spend simply learning to move through it. The arena's sand isn't random, it's chosen, selected for texture, weight colour, bright enough to show off blood, coarse enough to offer grip but just barely. Some arenas mix in crushed seashells to reflect the sun better. Others dye it red for dramatic effect. All of them ensure it looks good when soaked. Historians still argue whether different types of arena sands served practical purposes or purely aesthetic ones. Some think it was about symbolism, blood feeding the earth, sacrifice sanctifying the soil. Others believe it was just Roman showmanship, make the floor as much a spectacle as the fight. You believe it's cruelty with flair. You've slipped more times than you care to count. Once it nearly cost you your life. A gladius aimed for your shoulder, slid off your shield and caught your calf instead. All because you adjusted your footing on a patch of dry grit. You remember that match by the colour of the sand. It had just been raked, clean, deceptively serene. After that, you started walking differently, sliding your feet, learning how the sand shifts beneath your weight. It's like dancing with something trying to trip you. During training, they rake it again, not for neatness, but to hide the stains. You watch the slaves drag long-toothed combs through the arena floor, erasing the mess like chalk off a sate. A day ago, someone died right where you're standing. Now it's pristine, as if it never happened. But you remember. And the sand remembers too. It carries the smell, iron and sweat, sun-baked and ancient. Some days the heat lifts it like a mist, an invisible cloud of old battles. You walk through it and feel the weight of every man who fell here. Sometimes you find things buried in it. A broken buckle, a tooth, a fragment of bone. You're not supposed to look, but you do. Once you dug your heel into the corner of the arena during a warm-up and uncovered a tiny bronze pendant shaped like a bird, probably lost by a fighter long before your time, or maybe dropped by a widow tossing offerings for a lost lover. You kept it, tied it into the hem of your tunic, a silent charm. You never told anyone. The crowd doesn't think about the sand. They think about the blood that splashes on it, the dust kicked up by wild chariots, the way it glows in the evening sun. But you know it as something else. The sand is your enemy and your accomplice. Your stage and your shroud. Once, after a match, you collapsed from exhaustion, fell straight to your knees, then face first into the dirt. You expected someone to pull you up, but no one did. You lay there for a while, breathing in the sand, spitting it out, feeling it press into your skin like the embrace of something ancient. You realize then, when the end comes, the sand will be the last thing you feel. Not the sword, not the crowd. The saw. That's what buries you long before the grave. And it never ever leaves. You don't recognize your own name anymore. Not the one your mother gave you. Not the one you used to scribble on clay tiles back when you thought you'd grow old. That name is gone. Buried somewhere beneath layers of shouted titles, marketing slogans and chalkboard records. You are the flame now. And the flame is a brand. It started with the crowd chanting. Then came the vendors selling red ribbons, little painted figurines with fire-coloured helmets. Children wear tunics dyed like yours. Merchants name sausages after you. Someone bakes a cake and calls it panis flamma, bread of the flame. You hear about it in the courtyard one day and can't decide whether to laugh or retch. Your old self is still in there, somewhere, but he's smaller now, faded, A whisper drowned out by the roar of 1,000 strangers yelling a name you never chose. At first you hated it. Now you depend on it. Because that name, the character, the image, is what protects you. It keeps the crowd on your side. It keeps the editor's thumb pointed up instead of down. It keeps you valuable. And in Rome, value is the closest thing to safety you'll ever have. You start playing into it more. You walk slower into the arena. Turn your head just enough to let the helmet catch the sunlight. Raise your shield at a precise angle so the crest gleams. You master the small, meaningless gestures that stir the crowd into a frenzy. You're not fighting for victory anymore. You're fighting for recognition. Historians talk about this phenomenon, how gladiators were crafted as public personas, how their gear, their names, even their fighting styles were tailored for appeal. Like wrestlers, actors, action heroes, all rolled into one. They weren't just warriors. They were walking stories. Repeatable, sellable, replaceable. Because that's the dark side of it. Your brand isn't you, it's a mold. If you die tomorrow, someone else will be given the red tunic, the crested helmet, the trident. He'll be the flame now. The crowd won't skip a beat. They'll cheer as loud, maybe louder. And the city will keep burning. You think about this a lot. One night a younger fighter, new nervous, asks if you're scared before matches. You shrug. Not of dying, you say. Of being forgotten. He nods like he understands, but he doesn't, not yet. Your name gets painted on a wall near the forum, a crude mural. You're shown it on your way to a private event. The likeness is poor, your jaw too square, your chest too large, but the crowd loves it. They throw flowers at the base. One girl has tears in her eyes. You smile for the crowd, raise a hand, she nearly faints. Later that night, you scrape sand from under your nails and wonder what the mural will look like when someone paints over it. Because they will. Eventually. The Lannister notices your growing fame. Of course he does. He begins charging more to see your matches. He negotiates with senators. There's talk of sending you to other cities, Capua, Ostia, even Pompeii for special festivals. You realize you're no longer just part of the ludus. You're its face. That comes with perks, but it also comes with pressure. Your next fight is staged with full ceremony parade pre-battle rituals musicians. They dress you in gilded armor. Heavy, impractical, but beautiful. You hate it. It slows your movements, makes it harder to breathe, but the crowd gasps when they see it. So you wear it. Your opponent that day is less experienced. It should be an easy fight, but he surprises you, fights with desperation. The crowd loves that too. You win, but barely. You stagger out of the arena armor-dented arm, bleeding. As you pass the official's box, the editor raises his cup in salute. To the flame, he shouts. The crowd echoes it like a hymn. You keep walking. Back in your quarters, the mirror shows a version of you barely know. Sun-hardened skin, jaw clenched, eyes empty. You remove the helmet. Look at it. The flame crest is cracked. You should be upset. Instead, you breathe. Finally. They say retirement is possible. They say if you survive long enough, win enough bleed, just the right amount to be adored, but not so much that you fall apart, you might be granted the rudis. A wooden sword. It's symbolic, of course, not meant for fighting. It means freedom. In theory. But you've been here long enough to know that in Rome, symbols are cheap, and freedom is negotiable. Still, the rumours reach your ears. One of the veterans, a grizzled Gaul with a twisted spine, swears he saw a fighter in Capua receive his rudies after 20 wins. Another says he knew a man who earned it only to be sold to another ludus a month later under a new name. There are no guarantees, but there is always hope. And hope, you realise, is the most dangerous thing in this place. You try not to think about it, but it sneaks into your mind at night. What would it feel like to walk out of the arena not through the tunnel of the dead, but through the gate of victory, head held high, the crowd chanting your name, not as a demand, but as a farewell? What would you do with that wooden sword? Would you hang it on a wall? Would you sell it? Would you burn it? Historians still debate how often rudiarii freed gladiators truly left the life behind. Some say many chose to return to the arena anyway. Fame is a hard thing to let go of. Others say they vanished into quiet lives, becoming trainers' guards, or even beggars, faded stars the world no longer applauded. You've met one. An old man with a missing ear who sharpens weapons in the lower district. He walks with a limp and mutters in broken Greek. Someone whispered he was once the vulture of Veii. You looked into his eyes once. He looked away. One afternoon, the lanista calls you into his office. He pours wine. You don't drink. He circles a scroll on his desk, taps a name, yours. 15 wins, he says. If the next 3 go well, perhaps you'll reach it. He lets the word rudies hang in the air like a carrot on a stick. You nod. But you don't smile. You know how this works. One bad match, one failed spectacle, one unhappy editor, and the gate swings the other way. The next fight is a showcase event, a festival. All the major patrons will be watching. The arena is decorated with ribbons, the crowd drunk on honeyed wine and excitement. The match is complex teams rotating weapons, a set of dramatic turns rehearsed loosely, but meant to feel real. You are paired with Bellatrix, the warrior star. It's the first time you fight side by side. The crowd loves it. She moves like smoke, fast, graceful, efficient. You're heavier, slower, more deliberate. Together it creates contrast, tension, story. She spins you anchor. She dances you burn. Mid-match, your shoulder is clipped by a gladius. It's shallow but dramatic. Blood streaks down your arm and onto your chest plate. The crowd erupts. Bellatrix blocks the follow-up and answers with a sweep that knocks the opponent flat. It's so perfect it almost looks rehearsed. Afterward, you're declared champions. A ceremony is held in the arena. Laurel crowns. Chants. The editor stands and praises your unity, your valor. He lifts a wooden sword in his hand. Your heart stutters. Is this it? He hands it to Bellatrix. Not you. The crowd cheers wildly. She accepts it with a practiced bow mask still on unreadable. Later that night, she passes you in the corridor. Her eyes meet yours. No words, just one slow, slight nod. And she's gone. You lie in bed that night, staring at the ceiling. You came close. Closer than most. But not close enough. You start to wonder if anyone ever actually gets the rudies, or if it's just another story the city tells to keep you running in circles. Another flame to chase. And maybe, just maybe, that's all you'll ever be. A fire meant to burn brightly. And burn out. You wake to shouting. Not the usual barks of the doctor, or the rhythmic calls of drill commands. This is different. Urgent, frantic, somewhere outside something's gone wrong. You rush out of the barracks with the others squinting against the morning glare. Smoke. Thick, curling upward from the outer edge of the ludus. One of the kitchens. No worse. The gatehouse. Someone set it on fire. The guards are scrambling. Buckets are being passed hand to hand, but it's chaos. One gladiator, young reckless, makes a run for the outer wall in the confusion. He doesn't get far. A crossbow bolt drops him mid-stride. So much for freedom. But that bolt does something else. It silences the yard. Everyone freezes. Even the smoke seems to pause. The guards turn toward the barracks, eyes narrowing, suspicions flaring. From that moment on, everything changes. The ludus tightens like a fist. No more extra rations, no more walks, no more casual sparring or shared stories. The barracks are locked at sundown. The guards double in number. Weapons are counted. Conversations are monitored. And suddenly, you're not champions. You're risks. You feel it in how they watch you eat. In how the doctor speaks just a little sharper. In how even the sand feels colder beneath your feet. No one knows who started the fire. Some whisper it was a slave from the kitchens. Others think it was a planted distraction for a political hit gone wrong. Historians still debate how often such accidents were coordinated, escapes, personal vendettas, or just the city being the city. The truth, it doesn't matter. The punishment always lands on everyone. You go a week without stepping into the arena. No matches, no drills. Just waiting. The silence is worse than the beatings. And then finally the gates reopen not for battle but for spectacle, a public display of power, a culling, a warning. 12 fighters are selected. You are not among them. You almost wish you were. They are sent into the arena without fanfare. No music, no announcements, no crowd. Just an audience of guards, patrons, and one very angry lanista. It's not a match. It's a message. The fights are cruel, unbalanced, quick. 6 don't return. The rest come back barely able to walk. From then on, the training drills change. They're harder, meaner, less about form, more about dominance. You're made to run the perimeter of the arena until your feet blister. You're denied water until your lips crack. When someone collapses, they are kicked, not carried. This is no longer a place of survival. It's a cage testing which dogs can still bark. And that's when you start to feel it, that shift in the air, the sense that the spectacle is starting to rot, that the structure holding it all together, fear, money, blood, is beginning to strain under its own weight. You notice it in the way the guards talk, nervous, tense, like men who know they're standing in a lion's den with no more meat to toss. You catch one glancing at the arena floor longer than he should counting exits. Another has burn scars down his forearm. You wonder what he knows. The crowd too starts to change. Their cheers sound forced, their laughs louder than needed. They demand more. Wilder fights, stranger weapons, multiple animals, poison, fire, anything to feel something again. You, meanwhile, start preparing for matches like a soldier. No more theatrics, no more lingering in the sunlight or waving to your fans. You focus, you measure, you hit hard and clean and leave the arena before they even finish clapping. The lanista notices. He doesn't stop you. because he sees it too. The tide is turning. One night, a fight breaks out in the cells. Not a spar, a riot. A man snaps, screams something about the gods abandoning him. He lashes out. Another man fights back. The guards rush in clubs swinging. You stay in your cot. You breathe. You listen. And when it's over, you count the silence between the sobs. Afterward, the doctore visits your cell, stares at you. You're not afraid anymore, he says. You shrug. He doesn't smile. Good. Then he walks away. You lie awake that night and realize what he meant. They don't want fear anymore. They want obedience. And you're not sure which is worse. You hear the shouting before you see the smoke. It starts as a murmur, faint echoes from the city beyond the walls. Then the bells begin. Not the soft temple kind. These are alarms, deep, urgent, meant to call men to arms, not to worship. You climb to the barrack window and peer through the iron bars. Rome is burning. Not in full, not yet, but there's panic. People running. Ash drifting through the sky like dark snow. From this distance, it's hard to tell where it started. A bakery, a stable, a senator's villa gone up in flame from careless oil lamp. It doesn't matter. What matters is how quickly it spreads. And how close it is to the arena. The ludus erupts in noise guards, barking orders, slaves being rounded up, buckets of water forming lines, though it's obvious the blaze is far beyond what anyone here can handle. You and the other fighters are told to stay put. Containment, the doctore mutters. No confusion, no movement. But confusion is already here. One of the gates isn't locked properly. A rusted hinge fails. A small group of slaves takes off running. 2 are tackled instantly. A third makes it to the outer yard before a spear drops him like a sack of grain. You don't move. Because you've learned fire draws eyes. And chaos gets people killed. Still, you can't help but wonder, what if this is it? What if this is the rupture, the collapse of everything? The moment when Rome, so bloated with its own decadence, starts to buckle under the weight of its appetite. You're not the only one wondering. By dusk, the fires are closer. You can see the glow against the walls. The smell is thick, burned wood, scorched oil panic. The games are cancelled. That's when you know things are serious. The arena doesn't stop, not for storms, not for famine, but today the doors stay closed. And the crowd, they don't leave. They gather in the streets, restless, drunk on smoke and nerves. You hear them from your cell shouting, banging on wooden stools, looking for a distraction. For blood. And when the city can't give it to them, they turn on themselves. You hear glass shatter. A woman scream. And then somehow worse laughter. By midnight, the fires are under control, or so they say. But something's changed. You feel it. The structure, the illusion of order, is cracking. And in the morning it breaks. A riot, full scale, not outside but within. It starts with the animal handlers. One of the leopards, starved, agitated, confined too long, kills a trainer, rips him apart before help can arrive. The other handlers go mad. One blames a guard. The guard lashes out. Someone draws steel. By the time you and the others are dragged from your cells, it's chaos again. Smoke, screaming, guards fighting guards. A wild boar meant for a festival hunt barrels through the lower corridor, tusks red. You could run. The gate is open. The guards are distracted. But you don't. Because you know Rome. You know this won't last. They'll crush the riot, patch the walls, punish a few, replace the dead, and the games will resume. They always do. Instead, you retreat into the shadow of the corridor, shielded, watchful, breathing slow. And there, in the flickering torchlight, you see something that chills you more than fire. A boy no older than 15 wearing a gladiator's tunic too big for him, gripping a wooden sword. Not playing, not rehearsing, mimicking. He's watching the chaos with shining eyes. You realize he's studying you. Not with fear. With admiration. Historians often overlook this part. The spectators who didn't just cheer, but dreamed. Who looked at the arena not as horror, but aspiration. For every man broken on the sand, there was a boy outside the walls, pretending to be him, practicing roars, painting scars. You look away, because you can't bear to see your own legend echo back at you. The riot ends. Bodies are dragged. Cells relocked. And in the courtyard, sand is poured to cover the blood. Not cleaned. Covered. You return to your cot. Your hands still smell like smoke. The crowd will return tomorrow. And you? You'll perform. Just like always. You never thought you'd fear silence more than screams. But after the riot, silence settles over the ludus like fog, heavy low, impossible to escape. No drills, no matches, no guards cracking jokes or trading bets, just the quiet shuffle of sand underfoot, the occasional cough and the faint moan of the wounded. The arena floor, usually loud with hammers and wheelbarrows and shouting, is still, empty. The sand is smooth again, freshly laid pale and undisturbed, waiting. But not for long. The city needs a distraction. And nothing distracts like death. Word spreads quickly. A major editor, a political figure scrambling to restore public order, is funding a massive event. A full-day spectacle. Dozens of matches. Exotic animals, grand final duel, music, fireworks, even free bread for the crowd. It's not about celebration. It's about control. Historians call it bread and circuses, the ancient Roman formula for managing unrest. Feed them, entertain them, distract them. Make them forget what's burning outside the gates by setting fire to something inside the arena instead. This time you're the match. The lanista gathers you all in the yard. No speech, just names, pairings, roles. You're last on the list. Headline match. Final act. Of course you are. The next few days are a blur, not of chaos, but of preparation. Chariots are rolled in, lions chained and half-mad are dragged into shaded cages. Musicians rehearse in the upper tiers. Painters touch up murals of the gods, each one bloodthirsty and smiling. Even the vendors are polishing their trays and sharpening their knives not for fighting, but for slicing meat for the masses. And behind it all you train. Not for glory, not for revenge. For precision. Your final opponent is announced Ariston. You know the name. He's from a different ludus famous across the empire, known for his brute strength, his golden armor, and a style as aggressive as a starving wolf. He doesn't block. He absorbs hits and returns double. You've never met him, but you've studied him. He kills quickly and efficiently, not for show but for efficiency. He doesn't entertain the crowd, he conquers them. You're the opposite. You perform. You build moments. You draw gasps. And now you'll meet in the middle. They outfit you both with matched gear, part symbolism, part fairness, part spectacle. Bronze helmets with crimson plumes, broad scutums curved and heavy, short gladii polished and wicked. Your armour is etched with flame. His with teeth. The final day arrives. From the barracks you hear the music. Pipes and drums, a distant rhythmic chant. Flame, flame, flame. You look down at your hands. They don't shake. They should. But they don't. The doctor appears at your door. He says nothing, just nods. You follow him through the inner gate. The tunnel is long. You've walked it many times, but today each step feels different, not heavy final, like a bridge between two selves. The roar hits you before the sun does. 50,000 voices crashing like a tide. You step into the arena and the world explodes around you. Petals fall from the upper seats. Gold dust swirls. Dancers move along the perimeter like flickers of light. The crowd is ready. Hungry, you raise your hand. They scream. Then across the sand he appears. Ariston. Massive, slow walking. His helmet gleams like a god's crown. His shield is streaked with red paint. His chest bare, sun-darkened and scar-slick. He doesn't wave, doesn't acknowledge the crowd. His eyes are on you. The announcer draws it out, the names, the story, the fate of the city resting on this match. The old lines about Mars and honour and vengeance and the will of the gods. You barely hear it. Because Ariston's eyes haven't left yours. The horn sounds. He charges. You brace. The clash is thunder. Shield on shield, blade scraping, feet digging, the crowd vanishes, time slows. You parry. Duck. Swing. He grunts low steady, like a beast trained to fight in silence. No flourish, no taunts, just war. You land a hit shoulder, he lands one ribs. Blood. The crowd gasps. You circle. He follows. Then comes the moment. You feint left. He lunges. Too far. You slide beneath his swing and slam your blade into his thigh. He stumbles. You strike again. He drops. Sand flies. You raise your blade. Wait. The crowd erupts. The editor rises. Thumb out. Then turns it up. Mercy. You freeze. Ariston is breathing, barely, but alive. You lower your blade. The crowd screams your name. No. Not your name. His. The flame. You look around. You see petals fall. You see children cheering. You see your reflection in the blood pooling at your feet. And for the first time, you don't feel victorious. You feel used, The sun dips low as you walk back through the tunnel. The crowd's roar still echoes behind you, but you no longer hear it. It's become background noise like the ringing in your ears after a blow to the head. You've won. Again. Of course you have. You pass a blood-slicked spear, a broken sandal, a dropped ribbon still wet from the dust and sweat of someone else's heroism. You leave them where they lie. Inside the barracks, the mood is electric. The others cheer for you. Some call you brother, others slap your back like it's a sacred ritual. The younger ones beam at you like they've just watched Jupiter descend from Olympus. You nod, you force a smile, you sit. And you wait for the emptiness to pass. It doesn't. Later they bring wine. Real wine, not the sour water laced with vinegar and disappointment. A gift from the editor, a celebration of your mercy. You drink because it's easier than answering questions. You drink because you don't know how to explain what it felt like to be ordered not to kill. Ariston survives. He'll fight again, and the crowd will remember that you spared him. Maybe they'll make it a rivalry. Maybe they'll twist it into a friendship. Maybe they'll sell painted scrolls of the two of you shaking hands while flames and wolves dance in the background. They love a good narrative arc. But you know the truth. You didn't spare him because of honor. You spared him because you were tired. Because in that moment you weren't sure who you were anymore. Because when you looked at him on his knees, panting and bleeding, you saw yourself. And you hated it. That night you sit awake on your cot. Your armor hangs beside you, still damp with sweat and blood. The helmet's crest droops slightly bent from the final clash. You don't fix it. Let it hang. The flame has cooled. A messenger arrives the next morning. You're summoned. Not by the lanista, not by the doctore. By the Senate. At first you think it's a joke, or maybe a trick, but then you're escorted not by guards, but by lictors in crimson robes. Formal. Official. You're brought to a marble hall you've never seen. Not a place for slaves. Not a place for fighters. A place for men who rule from behind carved pillars and thick curtains. One of them speaks. You've become popular. You say nothing. We are considering a proposal, he continues. A state-sponsored role. Emissary of Rome, to travel, appear in other cities, spread strength, order. He smiles. You would still fight, occasionally, but under supervision. You nod slowly. He adds, and you would of course be granted the rudies. There it is. Freedom. A wooden sword and a new leash. You ask, would I still belong to the ludus? He tilts his head, no, not legally. You ask, would I be allowed to leave Rome? A pause. No, not without approval. So freedom, but only within their walls. A longer chain. You're dismissed with a scroll and a wax seal. Think on it, he says. But don't take too long. Flames. Fade. Back in the ludus, the others look at you differently. They know something's changed. They don't ask. They've learned, like you, that too many questions earn fewer answers and more bruises. That night you stare at the scroll. It promises freedom. Recognition. Respect. But you read between the lines. You see the cost. You would be a symbol, paraded, preserved, used. You wouldn't be a man. You'd be a mascot. The next morning you return the scroll to the doctore. "I'll stay, you say." He nods, doesn't smile, just walks away. And somehow that's the most honest conversation you've had in weeks. The games resume as they always do. But something is different now. Not in the sand, not in the weapons, not in the crowd. In you. You don't fight the same way anymore. You're still fast, still sharp, still deadly, but there's no flair, no rhythm. The crowd notices. You hear it in their murmurs. He's cold now. Less fire. Maybe the flame is burning out. They don't know you're doing it on purpose. You've stopped playing the character. No more exaggerated swings. No more showy footwork. No more basking in the sun with your blade pointed at the sky. You kill quickly, quietly. When mercy is called for, you give it. When death is demanded, you deliver it with no flourish. To the crowd, it feels like disappointment. To you, it feels like truth. The Lannister isn't happy. You can feel it in how he speaks to you, briefer now, colder. The way he watches from the balcony with folded arms and narrowed eyes. He knows you're changing. And worse, he knows there's nothing he can do about it. Because you still win. And winning, even without spectacles, sells tickets. Barely. So the crowd is given new distractions. Younger fighters, wilder weapons, two-headed animals and blindfolded duels. Bellatrix returns in a golden chariot dressed as Minerva. The people love it. They cheer and laugh and toss coins. You fight once that day, a simple match. A new recruit sent in far too early. You drop him in under a minute. He begs. The crowd is silent. You look up to the editor. He hesitates. Then points the thumb down. You obey. But slowly. Later, the doctore speaks to you. You're making people nervous. You ask why. He studies you. Because they can't tell whether you're still performing. You're not. And they can feel it. That night you watch the stars from the barrack roof. A rare moment alone. The sky above Rome never looks still. Always shimmering. Always alive. The fire you once carried inside yourself now seems to hang overhead. You think of leaving. Truly leaving. Not with a rudies, not with coin or title or applause. Just walking. But Rome doesn't let go. Even the men who escape its walls carry its shadow in their footsteps. You dream again. Not of the arena. Of a field. Quiet. Golden. You are barefoot walking through high grass, no armour, no helmet, no name. Just breath and sky and the wind through wheat. You wake before you reach the edge of it. Back in the yard, a new schedule is posted. You're paired with Ariston again. The rematch. The crowd demands it. A chance to settle a myth. They paint posters. One shows you locked in battle. Another shows Bellatrix between you and invented love triangle. Vendors sell red and gold cloaks. Ariston's gear is updated now, etched with wolves, his helmet sprouting fangs. They offer you a new cape. You decline. The Lannister presses. People want to see the flame burn again. You stare at him. You can light a torch, you say. Then you walk away. No one stops you. They're too busy preparing for the biggest match since the riots. Ariston trains hard. So do you. But not for the crowd. Not for vengeance. You're training for clarity. The day arrives. The arena is packed, loud, fevered. Priests chant. Flowers fall. Children scream your name. Yours and his. The sand is warm underfoot, familiar, still carrying the weight of 100 fallen men. You and Ariston nod once as you pass each other. No taunts. No performance. Just two men caught in a story they no longer believe in. The announcer begins his usual speech. You close your eyes and breathe. The horn sounds. And just like that, it's quiet. Not the crowd, they're louder than ever, but inside, where it matters. Where the nerves used to rattle and the heartbeat used to thunder. Now there is only calm. You and Ariston move without speaking. You've both done this too many times. There's no rush, no drama, no performance, just instinct. He's stronger, you're faster. He swings first, a broad arc, meant more to intimidate than land. You step to the side shield raised, letting the blow glance. The crowd cheers, you don't hear them. He comes again, this time lower. You drop into a crouch and answer with a jab to his flank. He grunts, that's all. It's not like the stories. There's no clash of titans, no thunderous impacts that shake the sand, just precision, economy. Two men navigating a brutal ancient language. His shield crashes into yours. You pivot faint high, swing low. He dodges barely. A scrape of metal. A line of red. You don't know whose blood it is. It doesn't matter. The crowd is on its feet now, roaring, chanting both your names. A city divided by bloodlust and loyalty. Some want you to win, others want him. But most, they just want someone to fall. You fight for minutes, or hours, or lifetimes. Time has no shape in the arena, only rhythm. Eventually he stumbles. You don't. Your blade rises. And you pause. He looks up at you, breathless, ready. Not afraid. The crowd is screaming, demanding. The editor rises. Thumb in the air. Then slowly, down. You don't move. Because this time you won't. Not like this. You toss your blade. It clatters to the sand. The crowd goes silent. Even Ariston blinks confused. You take off your helmet, drop it beside the sword. Then walk to the center of the arena. The crowd murmurs, then yells, then explodes into shouts, rage, confusion, awe. You raise your hands. Not in victory. In surrender. To none of them. Only to yourself. Guards pour in. The doctore shouts, the lanista stands, the editor signals wildly. You don't flinch. Ariston walks beside you. Together you leave the arena unarmed, unbowed. No one stops you. Because they don't know how. That night you don't return to your cell. You walk through the corridors one last time, tracing familiar cracks in the walls, smelling sweat and iron and dust. You climb to the roof, sit under the stars. You don't plan your next move. You just exist. Because for the first time in years, you're not the flame. You're a man. A tired, bruised but breathing man. And that is enough. So now let the noise fall away. Let the crowd's roar fade into a whisper, the kind you can barely hear over your own breath. Let the sand cool beneath your feet. There's no armor to carry tonight, no sword to sharpen, no name to wear like a costume. Just you sitting quietly in the dark, feeling the ache in your bones, yes, but also the peace that only comes after the fire has burned out. The arena sleeps now. The walls no longer echo with violence. The gates are closed, the torches dim. And somewhere outside these stone walls the city slows, the wine glasses empty and the world exhales. You've given enough. You've endured enough. You've survived. And sometimes that's the greatest victory of all. Not the applause, not the glory, not even the freedom carved into a wooden sword. Just the quiet. Just the breath. Just the knowing that after everything you're still here. Still standing. Still human. So let your eyes grow heavy. Let the weight of your body settle into rest. Let your thoughts drift not to blood or sand or flame, but to that golden field in your dream, where no one chants your name, and no one ever will, where you are no one, and that's what makes you whole. Sleep well, fighter. You've earned it.